Okay, so I'm going to start on a new project, and I thought I would record it because there's not a lot of box making videos out there, and I kind of want to gauge my progress and see if anyone else has different opinions on how they do it. So I'm going to make a jewelry box for my wife. I got these little inserts for, I would assume, a drawer that hold jewelry. These came from Muji, and they were really really cheap. And they're inside, they're already made, and they're already covered in this velour, which I absolutely hate working with. So I'm gonna count myself lucky that I don't have to deal with it today. So I just bought these pre-made. I'm sure they're available on the internet as well. So I'm gonna start by taking some measurements. So I already did this. I threw it on a sticky note. So roughly, width-wise, we're looking at about 165 millimeters. Height, we are looking at roughly 42. And then deep, we're looking at roughly 51. And I'm going to add some extra margin to all of those, just some padding, so we have extra room and things aren't too tight. We're going to be making this out of your standard binders board. I believe this stuff came from Talus. Oh, actually, this is a little thicker stuff. This might come from Blick. This reads as 2 and a bit, point two, or I'm sorry, 2 millimeters and a bit. So it's pretty thick stuff. It's thicker than I would use for a book, and thicker than I would use for most boxes. But I want to make sure that this is pretty durable, and I want it to last a long time because it might go from room to room, and it's not like a slipcase or anything. It's not just going to sit on a shelf. It's going to move around a little bit. So I want it to have a little more thickness than your typical project. So I started with just noting the grain direction of this board. Oh man, that doesn't really show up very well, does it? I just put some big broad pencil marks showing which way the grain direction goes. And I'm just going to kind of get a real rough idea of how I want to lay this out. I think I'm going to try and make the sides as rigid as possible. So I think I'm going to kind of do something like this. So there's not a lot of give to it. Something like this. So there's not a lot of give to it. So I'm going to start cutting out pieces. The way I make boxes is the way I make boxes. It is not necessarily the best way. It is certainly not the fastest or most efficient way, I promise you there. It's not the best way. It's my way. So I kind of take some stuff from like Daz bookbinding. I take some stuff from Ito Agassi. I take some stuff from a box making course that I took a couple weeks ago. And it's kind of a mashup. But like I said, it's a little different than what I've seen out there. So I wanted to kind of crowdsource some opinions. So this is our main construction material, is the book board. We're gonna do a magnetic lid, sort of a flap lid. It's gonna look and feel like a cigar box. I've got these magnets here. These are real cool. These are little square guys. These just came from Amazon. And then one of the best things I ever learned was never try to mate a magnet to a magnet when you're making like a magnetic closure. It will only end in pain and suffering, because if it's even a little bit off, it's gonna drive you nuts. So instead, they sell these. They're called strike plates. They're just little pieces of magnetic metal that the magnet will stick to, and they're a much bigger target for your magnet. So the way it's going to work is I'm gonna place the strike plate in, and then, or cut the hole for the strike plate rather, and then we're going to go ahead and use that to position our magnet. And there's a lot of wiggle room. We can hide a lot of our imperfection and a lot of our crimes. So that's what I'm going to do with those. There's going to be 3 different covering materials in this. For the inside of the book, I'm sorry, inside of the box, we're going to use this marbled paper. This is sold at a couple places all over the internet. This I got from a local craft store in Portland. But I think you can find that. I think this is like generically sold as Indian or Thai marble. They got it from GCP Papers. And it's big, like 19 by 25 sheet. It wasn't too terrible. It is a hand marbled paper. I don't use these a ton because the colors are a little muted. The camera's being really generous, I think, with the color. The colors are a little muted, but I think this is perfect for the little bit of this that you're going to see inside the box when the inserts happen to be in. So I think that'll be okay. And this is a pretty reasonable price, and I'm not even going to use like a quarter of this for this project, so I'll have plenty left over. And then I have 2 other pieces here. These are not really scrap, but they're smaller pieces. This is a piece of scrap that I cut from another project. This is a green book cloth. It's like this lovely little forest sagey green, kind of. So I like this. I'm not sure whether this is going to be the lid or the base of the box yet. And I don't have to really make that decision now. I have plenty of this. I have tons more of it. So I'm not limited to just this little piece. But this is easier to handle for purposes of demonstration. And then I also have a lot more of this. This is it's almost like a Celadon. Very sort of shiny book cloth. I think it's sold as like Japanese book cloth in a couple places. And it's really cool color. It's got this really neat texture. It's kind of silky. So I'm not sure if that's going to be the base or the lid. I am tempted to make this the base. And again, I do have more of it, so we have plenty to work with. I'm tempted to make this a base so I can foil stamp the lid with my wife's initials. I think that would be kind of neat. Although I guess I could also stamp the base and like just have it under the flap. That would also be cool. Or I'd also do like an inset paper label. Although I'm not sure how well that'll hold up. Again, this is going to get a lot more use than like your standard slipcase or clamshell box or something like that. So I want to be pretty robust with my materials and my choices. But yeah, those are the materials we're going to use today. So let's, I guess, start cutting board. Okay, so I went ahead and worked out my measurements, and I made myself a little cut list here. So we got to cut the base and a total of 4 walls for. We're just gonna do the base for now. We'll work on the lid a little bit later after I figure out what covering materials I want to use. So we'll start with the base, or the tray portion of this. Our base is going to end up being 168 millimeters by 54 millimeters. The tall wall is going to be 173 millimeters, which adds 2 board thicknesses. So we will extend past either side. 50 millimeters tall. So that's actually quite a bit extra here. So we can see that these 2 things only equal to about 42. We're giving it 50, and the reason we're doing there is so that any rings can go ahead and poke up a little bit, and it won't be a big deal. And I know for sure my wife is going to put rings in these. And then finally, the short side is going to be 54, which is that just again, we added, I believe, 3 millimeters in every direction, just to be really generous here, I don't necessarily care if these slide a little bit. That's not a big deal to me. I would rather these be too loose than too tight, because I don't want these to be like hard to get out. I think that would really suck. They are going to be stacked one on top of the other like this. I'm not going to do anything to these to make them stack. I think the velour will give us enough friction, and the inside of the box will give us enough friction to not worry about it. So let's go ahead and start cutting. I'm not going to use the board shear. These cuts are a little small for my board shear. My board shear is not super accurate. It really needs to be sharpened, but I just haven't done it. So I'm going to cut these with a knife. And first thing I'm going to do is snap off a fresh blade so I get the cleanest cuts I possibly can here. And we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got our tray base cut, and I marked the grain direction of all of these. I already messed up. My plan was to have the long pieces be the overlap, but that didn't work out. So the short pieces the overlap. I'm not convinced it matters. I've never thought it mattered, but maybe it does. I don't know. Tell me, I guess, if it does. And then we have of course, our edge pieces. So right now, since we know the grain direction of all these, and we're gonna line this, I'm gonna go ahead and line it. So I'm gonna line it with our marbled paper. I'm just gonna glue these up and put them on the marbled paper and then put them to press. I'm gonna press these probably overnight, just because I think I'm done down here for the day. And then we'll come back at them and we'll cut them free. And then this base is gonna get laminated to a piece of cardstock or tag board or manila card, whatever you want to call it. It's a real thick piece of cardboard that's gonna help us build our box just a little bit easier, which is how Dad's Bookbinding does it. And I think that's the way to do it if you're gonna ask me. So let me get these laminated up to our inside material, and we'll get them in the press. Okay, so this is the base. I cut him free from the rest of the sheet because we're gonna go ahead and put on our like support structure, I guess you would call it. So I'm gonna trim this guy exactly to size, and this is a situation where you might want a new knife blade because you are technically cutting wet paper. So it might be a little bit awkward if your knife isn't that sharp. This one seems to be okay. So this is trimmed. Oh, that's dangerous. This is trimmed exactly to shape now. So on my last glue up, neatness didn't count, right? Like, who cares because it's going to get covered, right? Now it kind of does count. So we're going to take a piece of this guy. So this is sold in the United States as tag board. but it's sold elsewhere as manila card, or cardstock, or light tag board, or it has a bunch of names. But we're gonna go ahead and glue it in here, and we'll sort of make this base that we can build on. And then after that, I'm gonna let this dry for a while. If I were trying to work at a good clip, I would say let it dry for like, I don't know, 15 minutes. You probably get away with 10, but no less than 10. So 15, 20 minutes maybe on average. I'm gonna let this sit overnight because I'm done up here for the day. I gotta go upstairs and start some dinner. But I'm gonna glue this just like this, and we'll pop it back in the press. So, it is, well, it's a little while later. It's not next day, it's still the same day, but it's a little while later. But everything is dry. So, we're gonna go ahead and keep moving here. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut these free, and then we're going to go ahead and start gluing here. But first, like I said, we'll cut these free. This doesn't need to be cut free. This is the shelf on which we build everything, so that stays. But these need to be cleaned up. Okay, now we begin construction in earnest here. So we're gonna go ahead and start building. And we're gonna assemble it something like this. We're gonna do that, and we'll put it all together and verify that everything fits. But I did this way. I did this lining and then cutting operation the way I did it, because this gets you perfect coverage on the inside. You don't have to worry about like folding over and tucking in, and like it's just so much easier. I think it's so much easier anyway. This is what I think Daz uses to cover the inside of his trays, and I really like the way it works. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue these together now. I'm gonna use PVA thick. The stuff I get is from Hollanders, but you can also just leave PVA out, I think, and it eventually will thicken up by itself. But you know, we got time for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these together, and I guess we'll let it dry overnight. Okay, we are all glued up. I'm gonna let this dry. It's really hot and dry out here these days, so I don't think it'll need to dry long. I'm gonna let it sit overnight. I probably don't need to. It would probably be good to go in like 15-20 minutes again. But we'll come back to it when it is dry. Okay, so it is a couple days later. Our magnets are glued in. They still work. So that's cool. We're going to attach the strike plates to the lid. The reason for doing that is I forgot to put the magnets in earlier, or I forgot to put the strike plates in earlier. I was hoping to put the strike plates on the base and the magnets in the lid, but there's no reason we can't do it this way. So we'll be attaching the strike plates to the lid, but first, to make this just a little bit more durable, because I do want this to be around for a while, we're going to put a piece of cardstock. We're going to use the same tag board we use for the base here, just over this, just so there's like an additional little layer of protection to keep this magnet from popping out. Not that I believe that's likely, but it's kind of a low effort way of just beefing it up a little bit, and all it cost me is a couple of minutes and a piece of tag board, which, because we previously were cutting it, we have an extra piece here, so no biggie. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this and make this just a little bit more secure. Okay, while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and start working on the lid here. And the way we're going to do that is just take some real rough measurements of the total box. So this is, let's say, 174. We know our width needs to be. So let's start with that. So we'll start by probably cutting this in half. So I have this nice piece of bookboard. This bookboard, I think, is important that it be the grain direction running this way. We're going to cut a back, which it does not necessarily matter, I think, how far down it goes. I might go down half. Maybe we'll go down half. I don't know. Maybe we'll go down the whole way. I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah, I think like half or 3/4 maybe. I think we'll go 3/4. But it's gonna go there. It's gonna go the full length of the opening, and then a little bit down, just to form like a lid you can grab onto. More importantly, it's gonna hold these magnetic pieces, so it's got to be at least big enough for those. So we'll get those cut. Again, we're gonna cut this to length first because that's gonna be easier. So 173, 174. We'll say 174. We'll be a little bit generous. Yeah, 174. And of course, we're gonna add cloth to this, so it's gonna be a little bit bigger on both on this side and on this side on the lid. So we'll say 174. So we'll cut that to width, and we'll keep moving here. Alright, so I'm going to show you how I do the insets for the magnets, or not magnets, sorry, strike plates. So I've already done one here. It's pretty straightforward. They're just really tedious. Or not tedious. They're really time consuming. They're not hard to do. They're just kind of fiddly and annoying. So I've done one, but I'll show you how I do it. So I got this thing, Compass Circle Cutter. I think this came from Amazon, and it's a compass, but instead of having like a pencil, it has a little X-Acto blade type thing on it, and I set it to roughly the internal diameter, radius, I think, of my strike plate, and then I found roughly where it should be. And again, rough all the way around here, right? Like it shouldn't go, the top shouldn't go above there. But because we're using strike plates, there's a lot of wiggle room to hide your crimes. So I'm going to start by placing my blade at the very top of that, and then I've actually found that the easier way to do this is to move the piece rather than move the compass. Just focus on keeping that compass perfectly straight, and then just cut around the piece. And it's gonna waver, it's gonna cause problems, it's not gonna be perfect, but it's a really great place to start. So we've got that little rough circle, and emphasis on rough because I didn't hold the blade perfectly straight. So we're gonna just take our little Ulfa knife and we're gonna kind of cut around it. I'll try to film it, but like I said, it's really fiddly. It takes a long time and it's just kind of annoying. But I cut with this, and then I use a micro spatula to kind of like just scrape out here, and that gets me mostly where I need to be. Okay, I'll raise my hand and admit I made a mistake. So I was testing if this was dry, and I mated it up to the top of here just to make sure the magnets all lined up and everything, and they did. They're a little too weak with the strike plate facing away from the inside of the box, but the strike plate mating with the edge of the paper here is actually strong enough. However, when I did that, I accidentally pulled out the magnet. It wasn't quite dry, which is my fault, because it wasn't quite dry, right? However, that made me a little paranoid, and I think I'm going to do the same thing I did with the magnets for the strike plates, where I'm going to put another layer of card over it just to be like extra super sure that doesn't happen again. So we've got it here. They're tacked. This used PVA thick, so it's gonna tack pretty fast. But I think a layer of card is not gonna hurt anyone, and better safe than sorry. Okay, well that dries, we'll return our attention to our covering of our box here. I also had a thought that there is no way internally that I know which sides the magnets are on. I think that's okay, and the reason I think that's okay is because I can feel them with, any good old piece of metal here, so I think I'll be able to tell. But if I were smarter, I would have found a way to mark that inside without being too obvious about it. So let's go ahead and continue. This has had a second to firm up. So now I have to decide which way I'm going to overlap. I typically overlap on the short side, the side not facing. So if you are looking at the jewelry box, this is going to be facing you because that's where the magnets are, right? So I typically overlap on a side you don't see. So I think I'll overlap this way. So in order to do that, I'm going to cut here. So these fold. I'm also going to snap a new blade because I scuffed up the strike plates with my knife, which I think will result in a better hold, but I'm going to snap a new blade just because I used it on metal earlier and I don't want to cause myself any problems here. So I'm gonna cut here and line it up here. Here. So that'll fold over nicely. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. I'm not worried about trimming every single line off right now. Okay. Perfect. All right. Now we're gonna overlap on this side. So I need to pick a length. I guess I'll pick 1/2 inch. Do I want to pick a full inch? I guess I can just pick a full inch, can't I? Although, if I pick a full inch, is that a lot? Oop. Is that a lot? I mean, no. I guess we'll do a full inch. So we will do this, and we'll cut it on this side of our straight edge. So the way it'll work is we'll fold it over right there. Now, what we want to do is make sure we have enough room here, which we do. We're good. Okay. Just wanted to make sure everything was consistent. So we're going to fold this side, and we're going to fold this side. We're going to cut these to length as well, because why wouldn't you have the time? So, the way this is going to work is we're going to turn that in, and then we'll trim those up. We'll also trim up any other additional turn-ins that we need at that time. But let's get started gluing this out. Alright, so I'm going to try a new trick. So normally I would just cut these flaps off, like right here at the board, right? However, I've noticed that sometimes I have a little like exposed board in the corner, and it's so small that I'm probably the only one who notices it, but it bothers me nonetheless. So I'm going to try a new trick that I don't remember where I saw it, but I'm going to trim a board's thickness on these flaps, just to see if I can kind of learn how to hide some of my crimes here. And I don't know where I saw this. I don't even know if I saw it anywhere. I might have just pulled this out of nowhere. So we trim those up, and then I'm just gonna turn these over, just so, like, if we miss a little bit, it's not a big deal, and then there's no extra ridges because this isn't extending inside of the box. So we're gonna try that today, and we're gonna see if it works. I don't know if it will, but I think it's kind of low risk, so we'll do it. And again, just one board thickness. I could actually probably be a little more generous. So there it is. That's the finished box. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. A couple things I would change though. Oh yeah, you can see the inserts fit in perfectly there. I did leave a little bit of room at the top for a ring. Um, a couple things I would change is I think the magnets need to be stronger, or something. I don't know if the magnets need to be stronger or I need to switch the strike plate and the magnet locations, but I definitely need to switch those out for something a little bit better. It does work, but it's not the best. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know what you think, I guess.